You're listening to Good Mic Work Commentaries, hosted by Greg Morgan, a pro wrestling podcast for adults, discussing the fun, wild, and sometimes insane world of professional wrestling.
What is up, everyone? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you with episode 489. Look at me coming up all early and shit. Couple of reasons for that. Number one, I found myself off on Tuesday to watch SmackDown live. I'm usually always at work, but I had the night off, so I sat at home and enjoyed the show and live tweeted with all of you. And I'm actually recording this just a couple of hours after SmackDown goes off the air. And number two is that I'm noticing that I have a little bit of a sore throat. And I don't know why. I haven't been sick in years, but just in case, on the off chance that I wake up feeling like shit tomorrow or my voice is going or it hurts even more, I figured I better get up here and record this commentary now while I have the chance. So I'll probably get all of this edited and uploaded to you sometime on Wednesday afternoon, which is a day early, and in recent weeks it's 2 days early than I'm normally up here to do my episodes, but we got a shit ton of stuff to get into now. We are officially on the road to WrestleMania. We finally got on the other side of Fastlane, and the card is really shaping up and it's starting to come together now, and WWE is really on the fast track to, hammering out and building all of these angles heading in to WrestleMania. So we got a ton of stuff to talk about as it relates to Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, and of course, we'll recap Fastlane as well. We'll talk about the current WrestleMania card, the latest news on the Cruiserweight tournament, and of course, all of the big angles and the big announcements that have taken place in the past couple of days, including the very likely John Cena versus Undertaker match and that whole challenge, Kid Rock going into the Hall of Fame, Braun Strowman possibly challenging for the tag team titles by his fucking self. Also, we have the Ultimate Deletion coming up, I believe, next week on Monday Night Raw. That has already been filmed, and there's a lot of controversy attached to that as well, because Jeff Hardy got arrested over the weekend. We'll get into that. And of course, WWE made a very, very controversial announcement on Monday Night Raw, announcing the inaugural Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal to take place with the women at WrestleMania. And I am absolutely floored by that decision. So we've got all of that to get into, plus maybe some extra stuff. I'll talk about that big 50-man Royal Rumble coming up in Saudi Arabia in a few weeks. And of course, the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes have their big All-In show coming up in September. And there's some rumblings that maybe CM Punk could be a part of that because it is in Chicago. So we'll get into all sorts of stuff and discuss scenarios and ideas and everything that we're looking at currently in WWE as we make the big push to WrestleMania that is just 25 days away or something like that. So it is really getting close. Why don't we start with Monday Night Raw? I was up here. I did a live watch along on Monday. That was a lot of fun. And it was a pretty significant show. So was SmackDown because so much took place on both shows. So all of the holes that we had open as far as what's going to take place at WrestleMania, a lot of those were filled. And we pretty much have a card in front of us now, minus, 2 or 3 matches that we're not completely 100% sure on yet, but the rest of the card is pretty much set. So we're going to get into a lot of stuff as we go here. But this past Monday Night's Raw opened up with what I thought was a pretty decent angle, a pretty decent opening segment. Now, Brock Lesnar was advertised to be at this Monday Night Raw in Detroit. He was advertised 2 weeks ago. He was also advertised that previous week on Raw where he no-showed in storyline. And they did it again. I can't believe they did this twice. Kurt Angle came out first, actually, and got on the mic and talked about his WrestleMania match with Ronda Rousey against Triple H and Stephanie and how much he's looking forward to that. No Ronda Rousey on Monday Night Raw either, which was odd because WWE did state that she would be on every Raw leading up until WrestleMania. So they shouldn't have said that because I really had no problem with Ronda Rousey not being on Raw. I don't give a shit. They don't need to have her out there every single week. But the fact that the WWE went out of their way to say that they were going to do that and then didn't, is just, they need to think before they fucking speak sometimes. So after Kurt Angle is talking about his match, Roman Reigns then comes out and he's pissed off. And he gets on the mic and he tells Kurt Angle that he just found out as he was coming to the ring that Brock Lesnar wasn't going to be appearing on Monday Night Raw, that he no-showed again, and that nobody had the guts to tell Roman Reigns to his face. He said, I walked right past Vince McMahon 20 seconds ago and he didn't say shit. He made me come out here so you could tell me and you could do his dirty work, and Roman claims that he's being disrespected by not only Brock Lesnar, but Kurt Angle and Vince McMahon and everybody else, and he starts walking to the back. He walks to Gorilla. Cameras follow him and everything, and Vince is sitting there in his normal spot. Next to him is Shane McMahon. McMahon, and Roman starts getting in Vince's face. And Shane tries to get in between and break it up, and Vince insists that him and Roman go off into Vince's office and talk about it privately, which they do. They go to commercial, they come back. Renee Young is outside of Vince McMahon's door, and she's going to attempt to get a word with whoever comes out first. Roman comes out first. He looks pissed off, just walks away, doesn't say anything. And then Vince McMahon comes out. And it got a little weird here because Vince is... he's talking about Brock Lesnar, and he's guaranteeing now that Brock Lesnar will be on Raw next week. So they're doing this for the third week now, where Vince McMahon is going to guarantee, he's going to personally guarantee that Brock Lesnar is going to be there. And he's also a little bit pissed at Roman Reigns for confronting him and fucking up the segment. So he also announces that Roman Reigns is, quote, temporarily suspended. So I guess he's going to make Roman Reigns take a couple of weeks off or whatever. I don't know. That might be a way to get Brock on TV next week and keep Roman Reigns off of TV, although I think it's going to be really hard to keep Roman Reigns out of that building. But it's a big question now as to what they're going to do in this build with Brock and Roman Reigns. A lot of people really like this segment. I did. And there's also a lot of people, the Roman Reigns critics out there that completely shit all over this. And they keep saying the same thing. They keep talking about how it's just a desperate attempt to get Roman Reigns over. Only in the crazy world of professional wrestling can the fans actually get pissed at WWE for trying to book a guy in an exciting way. All of our critiques, all of our complaints about Roman Reigns is that he's kind of just stale. He's boring. His promos aren't good. He's not interesting. He lacks some sort of charisma. He lacks that connection with the fans. He lacks something. So here WWE tries to change that. A couple of weeks ago, they had him cut like a work shoot promo on Brock, and the fans kind of liked that a little bit, or at least thought it was better. But still, it's like, oh, WWE has ulterior motives. They just want to get the guy over. Well, isn't that the fucking point? Our biggest problem with Roman Reigns is that WWE books him like shit and writes him in stupid segments. Here they're trying to change that, and the fans still aren't having it. So I don't know what the fuck they want. I get it. We don't want Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. I want Strowman versus Brock Lesnar. If it was up to me, that's the match we'd get. But this is the match we are getting. So the best I'm hoping for is that at least it doesn't suck. And so far, it's okay because they're trying to paint Brock as this bad guy. A guy that is most likely leaving, most likely going to go have another fight in UFC. His contract is coming up. He might stick around. I actually hope that Brock does. But I also would not be disappointed if he just left for a while, because I'm even getting annoyed with Brock because he's wearing out his welcome. It's a lot of the same stuff that we saw with Goldberg last year. We were all happy to see him back, but when he ended up winning the Universal title and wrestling in 3 pay-per-views for a grand total of 45 seconds, it just didn't feel right. And it was like, okay, Goldberg, it was nice to see you. Now get the fuck out of here. And he dropped the belt and he was gone. Now he's going into the Hall of Fame. So with Brock, if the same thing happens, I'll be like, good. Get the hell out of here. Give Monday Night Raw their belt back so there's a belt to be defended and you have a world champion on that brand, because we really haven't had one in a year and Brock is long overdue in dropping this belt. So they're adding to this that Brock has got outside interests. He's doing other things. He doesn't seem to care about the WWE or the fans or the talent and doesn't have any respect for anybody. Just sits on his ass with his cushy contract, getting blowjobs from Sable all day, and that's his life. And the problem with that, though, is Roman is just not, he's not very well liked either. So the fans are getting annoyed that WWE is just attempting to get Roman Reigns cheered, and they're saying it's not going to work. And they might be right. The Roman Reigns critics, they might be 100% right. Roman, this whole idea might fail. Roman might get booed just as loudly as Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, but we still have 4 weeks left. And if they keep doing shit like this with Brock, having him no-show, like if they do that again next week and they have him no-show for a third time, I mean, that in itself is kind of unprecedented, because WWE, barring injury, illness, or anything like that, one of their biggest pet peeves is they do not like to advertise something and then not be able to deliver it. So if they're purposely advertising Brock only to purposely have him no-show, that's territory that they haven't treaded in very often before. So, they're trying to pull out all the stops, I guess, and Vince is completely convinced that Roman Reigns is this big babyface hero, and he just thinks that this is going to work. It might not. But I can say that when I first heard about this match, a year ago, when we were all worried about Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, I was kind of worried that the feud and the angle in general would suck. And right now, even though we haven't had a face-to-face confrontation between the two yet, it's at least a tiny bit intriguing. It's a hell of a lot better than what they did 3 years ago, where they tugged down the belt. Brock, this beast, this monster, Roman Reigns, this badass, and they're playing tug of war, for fuck's sake. These guys should be ripping each other's heads off. So I think if you keep building this heat with Brock Lesnar, having him no no-show or have him come back next week and then have Roman be suspended and not be allowed in the building. Eventually, when they do clash, I think WWE's hope is that it will be a big deal. Or maybe they could even do something crazy and never have them appear on TV together. I think that would be crazy for your main event to do that. But if they did, it would definitely be something different and have the first time they face each other face to face to be at WrestleMania in the title match. I don't think they're going to do that, but they could. So I think WWE, like I said, their hope here is when they finally do bring these two guys together that the fans will give a shit. The jury's still out as to whether or not they will or not. But I see no point in attacking this segment. WWE is at least trying, and maybe, this can be good. I think a match between the two will be just fine. I enjoyed their match at WrestleMania 31. I enjoyed Brock beating the fuck out of Roman Reigns the whole time, and Roman never giving up, and he had that kind of insane, scary smile on his face when he was getting his ass kicked. Best case scenario here, we're just going to come away from this title match saying, okay, it wasn't our favorite thing in the world. We all hate watching Roman Reigns win belts and win WrestleMania main events, but it could have been a lot worse, and that's it. And I've said many times in the last couple of weeks, if it was up to me, if I'm booking WWE, I'm putting Strowman in this position. So don't go fucking ape shit in the comments and start giving me shit about Roman Reigns. Trust me, I don't want him there any more than you do. However, I do think if written and booked creatively or correctly, this has the potential to not suck. So I just think fans should have a little bit of an open mind about it. If it winds up sucking and after WrestleMania it was worse than we could ever imagine, then shit, I'll be right here with you complaining. But until then, I see no reason to be so goddamn fucking negative. At this point, I think it's safe to say that Roman is probably in the clear as far as all of that steroid talk goes, because this Johnny Bravo fuck, whoever he is, he clearly is full of shit or something here, because there's still no video. There's still no proof about all this crap he's running his mouth about. And Roman Reigns, I'm sure, has been honest with the company. They probably know what to expect, if anything, when this video or when this information comes out. And they're clearly not concerned because they're, putting Roman Reigns in the main event. Yeah, Braun Strowman might be a plan B. He might be a placeholder, and he might be inserted into that situation if need be. But WWE, I don't think, is really too concerned about this, and neither am I. Because I've said for weeks that I think whatever comes out about Roman Reigns, I think worst case scenario, this is going to out him for purchasing steroids back in 2016 when he got popped with the wellness policy violation and got suspended. I think it's just going to be something like that, if that. It might not even be anything at all. Because there was a story that broke over the weekend that apparently he might have gotten, this guy might have gotten Roman Reigns confused with Luther Reigns. Luther Reigns' name came up in some sort of a steroid scandal shit or whatever, and a lot of people were laughing their asses off that this moron had Roman confused with Luther Reigns. But he's swearing up and down that he knows that Roman and Luther are not the same person, and he still has some dirt on Roman Reigns. This seems like a guy that has a personal vendetta against Roman Reigns, is what it seems like to me. There hasn't been one word of this that he's said or we've heard about that I find credible whatsoever. So until he puts up or shuts up, until he puts his money where his mouth is and show us some concrete proof that Roman really is a scumbag, I don't give a fuck. He might have made a mistake in 2016. He did his time for that. He served a suspension. They took the belt off of him, and he hasn't been champion since. And that's why I think WWE is, continuing on with their plan of Roman, because they're clearly not worried about whatever comes out about him. And Roman, if he's smart, I would like to think that Roman is not stupid enough to lie to the company and say, okay, hopefully they won't find out or whatever, and then this guy drops some bombshell. I would hope that even if there is a bombshell to be dropped, that Roman's going to be upfront about it and say, okay, here's what happened. I'm pretty sure that when he comes out with this information, he's going to say this, and if I was in Roman's shoes, that's what I would do. And by the time this podcast is uploaded, who knows? Maybe we'll know by then. Maybe that video will be released, and if it's big news, I'll come up and do a whole separate commentary about it. But right now, I'm not too concerned. So we'll have to wait and see what they do next week, whether or not Brock shows up, whether or not Roman shows up, whether or not Vince McMahon gets involved, because now Vince is dealing with Brock Lesnar, a guy who in storyline isn't showing up for his contracted dates. So maybe Vince has to confront Brock. Maybe Brock hits Vince with an F5. I don't know. The fans would probably love that. It's happened before. But I don't know if Vince is now going to play a little bit bigger of a role in this feud. I really don't know. The other major news on Monday Night Raw was John Cena's promo. And of course, he fell short at Fastlane. Nobody expected him, well, at least I did not expect him to win the WWE title at Fastlane. I thought there was no way in hell that was going to happen. So him losing did not surprise me whatsoever. But I thought that if they were still going to go through with Cena and Taker, they might do it on SmackDown. But John Cena was back on Monday Night Raw, the night after Fastlane, comes out and cuts a pretty good promo. He's jumping all over the place, hops in the crowd, drinks a fan's beer, up and down emotionally with his promo, of course, starting out in a very somber tone for losing. He eventually just says, I'm not supposed to say this, I'm not supposed to do what I'm about to do, but you guys all know what I'm about to do, and that is lay down a challenge to The Undertaker. So there you go. There it is. John Cena officially challenges The Undertaker to a match and then goes on to run his mouth about him. And it was so funny. He talked about Undertaker being an egotistical asshole and talked about his wife's Instagram and says, if you were really retired and you really weren't coming back, then you wouldn't be posting workout videos on her page. And you don't hear many people talk about The Undertaker in that way. And Cena says the only thing stopping Taker from getting back in the ring is his ego, which I found hysterical because, you know, I think ego would put The Undertaker back in the ring. We've talked about this with so many different wrestlers that they just can't let go way past their prime, years past the point of when they should have had their last match. They are still in there. So Undertaker coming in once a year, working a shitty match for a huge payday, to me, that reeks of egotistical behavior. So Cena says the reason that he's not in the ring is because of his ego and basically calls him a bitch and basically is trying to entice The Undertaker, I guess, to accept his challenge. Now, when this accept happens, I don't know. It could still happen on SmackDown. I'm hoping that it will. I think SmackDown needs a boost over there. And SmackDown was pretty good on Tuesday. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But I would think we're going to get an answer from The Undertaker next week on Raw or SmackDown, or at the very, very, very latest, we're going to get it the week after. And there's also been a lot of rumors about what WWE could do with The Undertaker. We talked about this in my live stream. We were just kind of making up ideas. And of course, you guys know, you've been listening to my commentaries for the past couple of months. I've been adamant that The Undertaker does not get in the ring again, for all of the reasons I mentioned in the past, but most importantly, how he was given the main event last year to have his final match and the symbolic removal of the hat and the gloves and the jacket and leaving it in the ring. So how do they explain that? How do they undo all of that? Oh, just Undertaker changed his mind? He just decided that he's going to have another match after he already retired a year ago? That's kind of fucked up. So there is one option that they could do. And part of this idea came after the announcement of the latest Hall of Fame inductee, which of course is Kid Rock. I'm no fan of Kid Rock, think his music sucks, he's not my cup of tea, don't like him at all. However, I will admit that as far as a celebrity wing inductee goes, he's more than worthy of going into the Hall of Fame with all of the things he's done, all of the music that he supplied WWE with, and theme music, including The Undertaker's American Badass theme, which if I had one favorite Kid Rock song, it might be that, because he sampled Sad But True by Metallica, which is a pretty good song. So what if, just what if, WWE has The Undertaker come back as himself, as the American Badass, which would explain why he took off the hat and the gloves and the jacket, because he was shedding the Undertaker gimmick. Maybe he's going to come back one last time to speak to fans as not the dead man, but as Mark. I think he'll still be called The Undertaker, but he could legitimately come back as the American Badass. He could come down to the ring at WrestleMania riding a fucking motorcycle, just like he did at WrestleMania 17 against Triple H, and he might have done it a couple of other times too. 19, I think he did as well. So that actually might not be too horrible, but still, it's not going to change the fact that The Undertaker is really old and really broken down. He's everything that Cena said he wasn't. Cena insisted in his promo that The Undertaker is not old and he is not broken down. Well, Cena, I got news for you. Yes, he is. We all have two eyeballs and they all work. We can all see it for ourselves. He is old and he is broken down. And it's getting to the point where it's sad to see him in the ring. But if anybody has the right to come out there and do what Taker is doing, it's Taker. I mean, he's the godfather of the locker room. You know, to me, he has my undying respect no matter how many bad decisions he makes. So if Undertaker comes back, yes, I'm against it. Yes, I don't think he should, but maybe it's one last ride, so to speak, for him, and he can come out there and lose or win to Cena. I guess it's still up in the air who even wins this match. I mean, Taker could be the one guy that wins on his way out. There haven't been too many people that do that. Maybe Vern Gagne, Trish Stratus comes to mind, maybe a couple of others, but most guys go out on their back. So maybe Cena wants to do the honors for Taker. Or maybe Taker wants to do the honors for Cena and have two retirement matches against WWE's two top guys. The dead man is retired by one guy. The badass is retired by another. So that's an option, and that's actually a very likely possibility, and I wouldn't be completely against it, to be honest, because at least that does give some explanation for the jacket in the ring at the end of last year's WrestleMania, because that's always been annoying the hell out of me. It gets under my skin. I don't like that, that the Undertaker did all that, and I got tears running down my face, and the motherfucker's going to come back a year later. So, if they did it this way, and they did the American Badass, and Kid Rock played him to the ring live at WrestleMania, and Taker comes out on a motorcycle, and he's in there, and then if he loses, he can come back out on Raw the next night and maybe do a farewell promo, where he's not talking in that dead man voice. He's talking like he used to, and that will also make things a lot easier when he goes into the Hall of Fame probably the next year. Because we always wondered, what is The Undertaker's induction speech going to be like when he does go into the Hall of Fame? Is he going to come out there in full Undertaker gear, or is he going to wear a tux? So if the last time we see him is more of a human, more of himself, I think that will also help how his Hall of Fame induction is handled whenever that day comes. So I think a lot of us have the same idea here. I've seen it a lot on Twitter and on social media. A lot of people are talking about the American Badass possibility, and I guess we're going to know here in a couple of weeks. And like I mentioned earlier with Roman and Brock, and I, kind of threw out the idea of maybe keeping them away from each other for the entire build, even though I don't think WWE's going to do that. Maybe you do that with Taker. Maybe the only thing we get from Undertaker is the accepting of the challenge via Thunderbolts or Lightning or maybe a Titantron video or something like that saying, I'll see you at WrestleMania, but we don't actually see The Undertaker until WrestleMania. And I could be wrong. Did they do the same thing with Bray Wyatt when he wrestled Bray after he lost the streak at 31? Didn't they keep him off of TV? We never saw Taker until he came out at WrestleMania. So if they do that with John Cena, and John Cena is in the ring at WrestleMania, and then the lights go out and out comes the fucking badass, oh my God. So the fans could actually like that. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on the Cena and Taker situation now. Much like the Roman and Brock match, I'm not thrilled about it. I'm not thrilled about Taker coming back, but I'm hoping for the best. I'm not hoping it will fail like so many people are with Roman and Brock. I want Roman and Brock to be good, and even though I disagree with Cena and Taker, I want Cena and Taker to be good. I do. I want that for The Undertaker. He's been around for so long. Some of you weren't even born when he had his first WWE match. So the guy deserves to go out in the best way possible, and last year was pretty good, pretty memorable, but it looks like he wants to go out twice. So whether he's the badass, whether he's the dead man, I don't know. I just hope that, much like Roman and Brock, it doesn't suck. Keeping on the subject of main event players on Raw, we had Braun Strowman making an interesting impact on Monday Night Raw. He's kind of pissed off that he doesn't currently have a match at WrestleMania either. So he made it known on Monday Night Raw that he was going to carve his own path to WrestleMania and he would figure something out. And the longer the show went on, I was watching it live with all of you. I was like, what's the main event here? What are they doing? It's going to be the Tag Team Battle Royal? Who really cares? And we hadn't seen Braun Strowman all night, so I was starting to think, oh shit, he's going to come out there and win that fucking Battle Royal by himself. And he did. So right before the Battle Royal gets underway, his music hits, he comes out to the ring, and he just beats the shit out of everybody. They got him down a couple of times. They were working Braun over a little bit, but eventually he was able to eliminate everybody, and he won the Tag Team Battle Royal by himself. I was surprised at the hate that it was getting. I was actually fine with this because I am so devastated that Braun Strowman is not going to be winning the world title at WrestleMania that I want him to do something fun and unique, something better than just winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, something better than just working another gimmick match with Elias. So if he goes out there and wins the tag team titles by himself, I think would be fucking fabulous. I don't think it would be a burial of the bar. Look at what Braun Strowman does. He eats school buses for breakfast. He tips over ambulances. He tears down buildings. This guy's a fucking monster. He could easily win the tag team titles by himself. I don't think the Bar are going to be buried if they lose to Braun Strowman in a handicap match. I think the Bar would be buried if they lost to James Ellsworth in a handicap match. Then you would be right. But with Braun Strowman and everything he's been doing on TV for the past year, it's completely plausible that this guy, this monster that cannot be killed, could easily beat a tag team in the WWE. And as far as whether or not it's legal, if you have the Freebird rule and the New Day rule and 3 guys are allowed to hold tag team titles, then I think 1 guy should be allowed to hold the tag team titles. And now you're going to have the Freebird rule and the Strowman rule, the Braun rule. That's what it needs to be from now on. Throughout the rest of history, if 1 guy wants to win the tag team titles, he can, and it's going to be called the Strowman rule. And a lot of people are speculating that he's going to have a tag team partner. I don't want him to have one. I think maybe next week Kurt Angle's going to insist that he does have one, and then he teams up with Elias or he teams up with Samoa Joe. But Strowman, it wouldn't make any sense for him to team up with either one of those guys, especially Elias, considering the feud that they've been having over the past couple of weeks. But if they did win the tag team titles, that would be a pretty unstoppable team, whether it be Elias or Samoa Joe or whatever. But just for the entertainment factor of Braun Strowman, I want to see him win these belts by himself. I do. I'm probably the only one that's saying that because I think a lot of the, quote, smart fans are kind of pre-wired to reject this kind of idea, where not me, I'm willing to run with it. So give Strowman the belts by himself. I think it's going to be funny as shit. So I'm hoping that Braun Strowman walks out of WrestleMania with 2 title belts. And then as far as his world title aspirations, we've got all of 2018 to enjoy that, because Braun Strowman is not only going to get some title shots, but I am 100% convinced that this guy will be world champion in 2018. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen at WrestleMania, but I still think it's going to happen. So I'm a little bit, at least until next Monday's Raw, I'm a little bit relieved that Braun Strowman at least is going to be doing something kind of interesting at WrestleMania, and he might be making some history. And speaking of his potential tag team partner, Elias did have a segment on Raw where he walked out of a concert. He was about to sing. The fans were booing the shit out of him. He got pissed and he just walked away. No guitar, no walking with Elias, no nothing. And I've got an idea for him at WrestleMania as well, because we've all been wondering, what is Elias going to do? I hope he doesn't miss the show. He could maybe win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, if that Battle Royal is even happening. They haven't talked about it yet on WWE. So maybe it's possible they bumped it for the Moolah one this year, but I'm guessing they're going to do both. But in the off chance that they don't do the Battle Royal, even if they were doing it, I don't even know if I want to see Elias in it. I don't even know if I want to see Elias in a match at all, because he's a character. Look at what he's doing. He's coming out there and singing every week, entertaining everybody. The guy's great. He doesn't need to have a match at WrestleMania. He just needs to have a memorable, kick-ass segment. And I think that if The Rock cannot wrestle at WrestleMania, he needs to come out at WrestleMania and have a sing-along with Elias, or a rock concert, or a battle of the bands, or something with Elias. And yes, I know that means Elias will probably take a rock bottom and a people's elbow after it, but at least it will be a memorable segment, and you can have Elias out there singing with The Rock, and then if you really want to get nuts, you can add other people. You can add Aiden English. Jericho, I believe, from what I heard, is going to be off touring with Fozzy, but if for any reason Jericho could show up at WrestleMania, you could have Elias and Jericho and The Rock in the ring at the same time, with maybe Aiden English and maybe Jeff Jarrett and the Road Dogg. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a few bars of With My Baby Tonight involved in all of this. So I kind of see Elias being involved in something like that at WrestleMania instead of a random, meaningless match. I would much rather see Elias do that than be a tag team partner with Braun Strowman or be in the Battle Royal or something like that. I would like to see Elias do something significant, and if they don't have him set up to be in any sort of title matches or major angles, they could at least put him in there with some big-time legends. And we're going to have to get one of those segments anyway. You know that, right? Every year at WrestleMania, we get something like this. Somebody comes out and makes an appearance, whether it be the NWO or DX or The Rock in recent years, like we've seen even John Cena, Mick Foley, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold. They've all come out in the ring to do shit before. So I think Elias should be involved in whatever that turns out to be. Moving on to the women now. Big news, of course, coming out of Fastlane. Asuka did show up after Charlotte tapped out Ruby Riott and officially challenged Charlotte for the SmackDown title at WrestleMania. I'll get into all that here in a minute, but Asuka was back on Raw on Monday, and she wound up taking on Mickie James in a match after a promo with Alexa and Mickie and Asuka. And Alexa at one point tried to call out Nia Jax, and she no-showed, forcing Mickie to face Asuka, and her and Alexa didn't have as much backup. Asuka wound up tapping out Mickie James, no surprise there, and it was announced that she will be facing Alexa Bliss next week on Raw. So that should wrap up all of the Asuka and Alexa Bliss shit that has been going on for the past couple of weeks. She'll beat Alexa Bliss again next week, and then she'll be off to challenge Charlotte on SmackDown. And since Asuka is challenging for the SmackDown title, that leaves Alexa Bliss wide open to take on Nia Jax, which is what I said weeks ago. I said this is probably what they're going to do. And then last week, after what we saw Alexa do to Nia Jax, kind of passively aggressively insulting her, I'm like, there you go. Eventually Nia Jax is going to snap. Asuka will go face Charlotte, and Alexa will have to defend her title against Nia Jax, and that was set up. Nia ended up destroying a jobber, and the reason she didn't come out and help Alexa and Mickie earlier is because she was informed she had a match and she didn't want to go out there. And it was the funniest thing. I'm watching this live on the stream, and I'm thinking about the situation between Nia and Alexa, and I almost said it out loud, but I didn't. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, how is Nia going to realize that Alexa doesn't give a shit about her? What's going to happen? and I immediately thought of GTV. And I was like, you know what? It's probably going to be a hidden cam type of situation where Nia is going to overhear Alexa Bliss talking shit about her. Or maybe she'll be around the corner and she can hear Alexa talking or something like that. It's going to be something to where Nia discovers that Alexa doesn't give a shit about her and she's going to go nuts. And then they did that right after Nia Jax's match because Alexa is supposed to have an interview in her locker room that got postponed, but the cameras were left on and it shows her and Mickie James in there just completely insulting Nia, making fun of her, cracking jokes about her, talking about how they have her fooled and she's a fucking moron and a fat piece of shit and all this crap. And Nia is in the ring and she's heartbroken and she's sobbing and she's crying and she just kind of leaves the ring very sad. And then she storms into that locker room like an absolute madman, like Braun Strowman on crack. And Nia tears up the entire locker room. And now Alexa is in a jam because not only does she have to face Asuka of all people next week on Raw, she's got to contend with a very, very pissed off Nia Jax. So there you go. That's going to be your match. And I mentioned this last week. This is probably WWE's, way of making it a feel-good story. Nia Jax has probably been fat-shamed her whole life and messed with and fucked with, and she's probably had a lot of emotional turmoil in her life, and she can be, an inspiration to girls in her position. So I'm not really against that storyline there. A lot of people thought it was ridiculous that she turned face. Not me. I think it's great that she turned face. Her theme music is a babyface theme anyway, so what's the difference? And on top of that, everybody turns heel and face back and forth unless your name's John Cena. So it's completely inevitable that at some point Nia was going to go babyface, and now she's going to wind up winning the belt from Alexa Bliss and getting the ultimate revenge at WrestleMania. So I think we're going to have two new champions on the women's side of things after WrestleMania, and I guess next week that whole thing will be set up because Alexa's got to face Asuka, and Nia's going to come out there and Alexa's up shit creek without a paddle, as they say. So next week should be interesting as far as the women go. Just a couple of other things to mention about Monday Night Raw. We did have a one-on-one match with Seth Rollins and Finn Balor again. Balor ended up winning with a roll-up after Seth performed the superplex where he usually rolls through it and then hits the Falcon Arrow. But Balor blocked it, rolled Seth up, got a quick 3 count. And of course, the two of them are going to be facing The Miz in a triple threat match at Mania for the Intercontinental title. And The Miz had both of those guys out there for a Miz TV segment earlier on in the night where he's trying to stir the pot between the two. And eventually that's what led to the match. So sad to say that in an awesome match with two awesome guys like Balor and Seth was uneventful, but it really was. Aside from the good wrestling, it wasn't much to talk about there in that match. And then, of course, we also had the big Ultimate Deletion preview. Matt Hardy officially challenged Bray Wyatt last week, I believe. We all thought that this was going to be a WrestleMania match, at least I did. When I talked about it in my podcast right after it was announced, I was talking about the match as if it was going to be a WrestleMania match. That's actually not looking like the case now. I think this is going to take place on Monday Night Raw, possibly even this coming week, which I think is good. I mean, I don't know if you want to have an off-site match at WrestleMania. You got 80,000 people in that stadium. I don't know if you want to have them sit through a match on the big screen, although a break in between all of these matches that we're going to have, 15-plus matches, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but there might just not be room for that match at WrestleMania unless you did half of it at the compound and then had them finish in the ring. So I think eventually Hardy and Bray will face each other at WrestleMania, whether it's in a segment or a battle royal or a one-on-one match. I don't know. I think they'll probably do the blow-off at WrestleMania, and the Ultimate Deletion will not be the blow-off. And it was already filmed. They filmed it last weekend at the Hardy compound. Jeremy Borash was present for that, and he had a big hand and played a big part in what they did in TNA. So I'm really hoping this Ultimate Deletion, whenever it airs, turns out to be good, and it's at least as good as it was in TNA. I know we're going to see Senor Benjamin there and Rebby and Maxwell because Matt Hardy's been tweeting shit with them, pictures of them all week. And we're also going to see Brother Nero, who apparently got himself into a little bit of trouble. And the news broke on this in the middle of my Fastlane reaction video on Sunday night when I was live streaming. And somebody put in the chat that Jeff Hardy was arrested, and I initially kind of disregarded it, didn't really think anything of it. I just thought people were fucking with me. And then next thing you know, Twitter starts blowing up, and Jeff Hardy got arrested for a DWI, or a DUI, on Saturday, I believe. So just a couple of days after the Ultimate Deletion was filmed. And this is fucking scary. Jeff Hardy, I cannot believe this. I thought he had finally cleaned his act up. They just returned a year ago. He's got a wife now. I think he might have a kid, Jeff, I forget. but he's just doing better. And he seems to be sober for the first time in his fucking life. And he's on such thin ice as it is. He still has the 2 strikes on his wellness policy. And of course, he's been off of TV nursing his injury, which is another scary thought because Jeff Hardy was an addict and he was addicted to pills and opiates and shit like that. So if he's gone off and had surgery, how was he managing that pain? Maybe he got hooked again or something like that. Or maybe he was just drinking. I don't know. I think alcohol is Jeff's best case scenario here. I never really thought of Jeff as much of a drinker. He seemed more like a drug doer to me. But if he did have a couple of drinks, left his house, got arrested for a DUI, at least that's manageable. Because the Usos, it was Jay or Jimmy, one of them got the DUI just a couple of months ago, and they've been tag team champions throughout all of this. So for Jeff Hardy's sake, I'm hoping that this was an alcohol-related DUI. According to the police report, he was released just an hour later after he was arrested. And I thought it was hilarious, too. A lot of us discovered on Sunday night during my live stream, because somebody was nice enough to tweet me in a direct message, Jeff Hardy's police report, or at least the entry on North Carolina's judicial website or whatever. And lo and behold, goddamn, I had no idea. His middle name is actually Nero. So that's where the Brother Nero thing came from. I never even thought about that. Never even cared why Matt Hardy called him Brother Nero. I'm like, it's just some weird-ass fucking name he made up. But no, that's Jeff Hardy's real middle name, which I cannot believe I never knew. So I found that really amusing, but I am really scared now, and I'm really terrified for Jeff Hardy's future because we just read recently that he was cleared to wrestle. He can actually return anytime now, but if this is a drug-related thing, I don't know. He could be fired from the WWE. It doesn't look like WWE is going to reshoot anything. I think Jeff Hardy's appearance in the Ultimate Deletion might have been more of a cameo, so worst case, maybe they cut him out. But I don't know why Jeff insists on doing this. The motherfucker just cannot get out of his own way. What year was it that he fucked up right before WrestleMania? Didn't this happen before? WrestleMania 23, 24, something like that? And they had to yank him out of the Money in the Bank match because he got arrested right before Mania? And he's doing it again? 10 years later, he hasn't learned his lesson? So very disappointing and very annoying that Jeff Hardy just gets himself into these situations, and I'm hoping for the best here. I really am. If Jeff Hardy got a DUI because he was drinking, I guess that's a mistake that a lot of people make. Getting behind the wheel on alcohol is no better than getting behind the wheel on any other drug. It's all under the influence, and that's the thing. If it's a DUI, you are driving under the influence, and that can be anything. That can be pot. That can be Tylenol. You can take too much Tylenol, and they can legally give you a DUI. So driving under the influence or driving while impaired is across the board any substance that will fuck you up. If you are impaired in any way, you can get arrested for that. So I'm really hoping that Jeff Hardy can survive this one. But I just don't know. I just can't believe this happened to him. So wishing Hardy the best, wishing WWE the best. This doesn't fuck up all their plans because this isn't the first time Jeff Hardy has done something like this. He's fucked up a lot of opportunities, including some in TNA where he showed up to a match fucked up. So Jeff, buddy, bro, fellow North Carolinian, a dude that's my age and should be a lot smarter than this. I'm going to say this slowly. Get your shit together. And speaking of controversial and disappointing things, oh man, we got a big one. On Monday Night Raw, WWE announced another match for WrestleMania, and it is what I had speculated on weeks ago. I have already talked about this. I thought WWE might do this with the women because they've done the Hell in the Cell match, they've done the Royal Rumble, they've done the Elimination Chamber, they've done the Money in the Bank. What's stopping them from doing a Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania? And I pitched the idea of that a few weeks ago and even talked about who they could name it after. And one of the first names I immediately ruled out was Fabulous Moolah because of all of the controversy surrounding her past. And I think that's why WWE even named the women's tournament after Mae Young and not Moolah, because Moolah is fucked up. So when I pitched, when I first started talking about this battle royal, is name it after Chyna. Yes, Chyna isn't the best role model out there either. She has a very checkered past, but she's also had a lot of fucked up things happen in her life, and she was a pioneer. She was an inspiration in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of her past mistakes can be swept under the rug, maybe hidden or ignored, and they're not nearly as bad as what Moolah did. Chyna did damage to herself. Moolah did damage to others. And I think there's a big difference there. And especially when you think about the Andre the Giant Battle Royal being named after the 8th wonder of the world, I thought it would be really cool to have the Women's Battle Royal named after the 9th wonder of the world. But no, WWE decides to honor the Fabulous Moolah and announce that I guess from now on, every WrestleMania, we're going to get a Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal. What the fuck? Wow. my jaw dropped. My reaction on my live stream on Monday was priceless because they started running the Fabulous Moolah video package. And I also knew that it was March, was Women's History Month, and WWE is doing a lot of these video packages. So when they were talking about Moolah, I was like, wow, I can't believe they're advertising Moolah, or they're kind of tributing her here on Monday Night Raw. I just thought it was a tribute. That's all it was. I thought it was just because it was Women's Month and they wanted to talk about the Fabulous Moolah. And then I'm talking to all of you guys in the live stream and I'm not paying attention to what they're saying until the very end when I see the graphic for the Battle Royal and my jaw literally hit the computer desk. And I'm like, what? I could not fucking believe it. And I was surprised how many people weren't aware of Moolah's past. I kind of thought at this point it was common knowledge. And a lot of people were asking me in the chat, why does this piss you off? Why are you so upset? And I'm like, what do you mean, why am I so upset? How have you not heard about some of the shit that Fabulous Moolah has done? I actually remember talking about this in one of my first ever videos, like the second or third video, I mentioned something about this. And I didn't even know about these details, I think, until like the late 90s. It wasn't until Moolah and Mae Young started appearing on WWE TV a lot, and Moolah won the title at like age 75. It wasn't until then, actually, that I learned about all this fucked up shit that she was up to. And I don't even want to get into it because it's disturbing as hell, but if you guys want to do some research on Fabulous Moolah, do it yourself. You can do something as simple as a Wikipedia search, and I'm sure you can find a lot more. But she was abusive, in many ways. I mean, she basically imprisoned these women and these trainees, and she took advantage of them, financially and sexually, and pimped some of them out, and she held them down. And she took like all of their earnings. Anytime they got a booking, she would take literally more than half of their money. And she was just a rotten human being. She really was. She comes across as a sweet old lady, but she's a fucking bitch. And some of the things and the stories you're going to read about her will really make your skin crawl. And I just can't believe that WWE, the same company that a year or so ago goes on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast on the WWE Network, represented by Triple H, and says, I don't want Chyna in the Hall of Fame because what happens if kids Google her name? Well, what happens if kids Google the Fabulous Moolah's name? What happens if kids Google Jimmy Snuka's name, or Sonny's name, or a lot of names? And don't get me wrong, I think Hulk Hogan is a piece of shit for what he said, but you're going to yank him out of the WWE Hall of Fame for saying the N-word, and you're going to put Fabulous Moolah, and you're going to put her name on a trophy, and you're going to honor her at every single WrestleMania after what she did? And WWE is getting a lot of backlash from this. I just cannot believe they did this. I'm just blown away by it. If you want to have a battle royal, fine. And actually, Fabulous Moolah, her career would be somebody that you would name a battle royal after because of how long she held that title, what an icon in women's wrestling she was, because she absolutely was. But her personal life, in my mind, in my opinion, disqualifies her ass. And Moolah has been outed in a lot of this because so many people have come forward and talked about all the messed up shit she did. So I don't know if maybe they're going to drop the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and replace it with a Bill Cosby Battle Royal. I have no idea. So why don't we move on here before I find myself ranting on the Fabulous Moolah for a full hour and talk about Fastlane next. Let's give that a quick recap because I'm going to talk about SmackDown here in a minute. And then after that, we'll discuss the WrestleMania card and what we're looking at as far as that pay-per-view goes. But Fastlane, of course, was this past Sunday on the WWE Network. I was up here doing a live review after the show. I went perfect in my predictions. I got every match right. Well, sort of. I guess I didn't necessarily pick the tag team match right with the New Day and the Usos, but I did predict that the Usos would retain, and that's what they did. But we'll start at the bottom. I picked the heels winning the women's tag match. Natty and Carmella got the victory over Becky and Naomi in that one. Nakamura, not surprisingly, did beat Rusev in the opening match, and the only thing I had a problem with as far as that match goes is that if you want to have a tune-up for Nakamura and have him beat somebody on his way to WrestleMania, why do you have to pick the one guy on the entire roster that might be a little bit more over than Nakamura is, or at least on the same level as Nakamura? Because the fans love Rusev. They love Rusev Day. They love his pairing with Aiden English. It's fucking great. So of all the people they could have Nakamura face, I think Rusev was a bad decision. I did mention the Bludgeon Brothers interrupting the New Day and Usos tag team title match, and they beat the hell out of everybody and left everybody laying, which has got us all thinking that we're going to get yet another triple threat match at WrestleMania, this time for the SmackDown tag team titles. I also predicted Randy Orton to become the new United States champion, and he did. This was a match that I didn't completely hate. They went a good amount of time in this match, too. Orton and Rude are two good veterans that we've been waiting for years to see wrestle each other. You know, I always thought back when Rude was in TNA that him and Orton would put on a great match together, and they put on a really nice old school match. Neither one of these guys are AJ Styles. Neither one of these guys are Eddie Guerrero, but they're good, you know, ring generals for the most part. And Orton got the victory there with the RKO, and a lot of fans hated that Bobby Roode lost his belt, but I don't think he's completely out of the picture. He's got a rematch clause, and he's clearly going to be involved in whatever they do for the U.S. title at WrestleMania, whether that be a triple threat or a ladder match or something like that. We don't know, but we know Jinder Mahal is going to be involved. And Randy Orton, you know, won the one belt that's eluded him, and now he's won everything. So I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but Randy Orton defeating Bobby Roode really didn't piss me off. I know it's supposed to piss me off if I'm supposed to be a smart fan, right? I'm supposed to hate everything Randy Orton does, and he's absolutely forbidden to win matches, right? But, you know, I didn't care. I thought it was pretty decent, and it could be the beginning of a heel turn for Bobby Roode, because I think he's been unremarkable so far in his babyface run. I never thought they should have brought him in as a babyface to begin with. So maybe by him losing, this can start maybe a mean streak in him or something, and eventually he will go heel, which is where he belongs. Of course, I also mentioned Charlotte tapping out Ruby Riott. Not only did I predict that match right, I predicted Riott tapping out. I just saw no way that she was going to defeat Charlotte, and I thought it was a good opportunity for Riott to get a big title match at a pay-per-view, give Charlotte a good match, and come up in the losing effort there, and she did. And then after Charlotte was celebrating in the ring, that's when Asuka came out and made the challenge to Charlotte official. And I cannot tell you how relieved I am that that match is happening, because I thought there was no way WWE does not do this match. You have to. It's WrestleMania. And then, of course, in the six-pack challenge, the main event, AJ Styles did retain the WWE title, pinning Kevin Owens at the end with the phenomenal forearm. Shane McMahon got involved in this. He was at ringside for the whole match, and at one point, or at 2 points in the match, he cost not only Kevin Owens the title, but Sami Zayn the title as well. And I had pitched the finish in my predictions video that John Cena should be the one taking the pin here, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. All I wanted really at the end of the day was for AJ Styles to walk out of Fastlane as the champion so he can go into WrestleMania to face Nakamura. I don't give a shit who takes the pin, but I was kind of thinking Cena would, but it was Owens instead, and no big deal. AJ won, and that's all that matters to me. So overall, Fastlane was not as shitty as I thought. I wasn't expecting it to be a great pay-per-view, and it definitely wasn't by any means. It was a virtually a throwaway show. They didn't really need to have a pay-per-view for any of these matches here. And now we'll move into SmackDown on Tuesday night. This was a better show. This really was better than what SmackDown has been doing lately. SmackDown has been in a funk. It's been so bad, and a lot of people are calling for Road Dogg's head on a fucking stick, which I think is way too extreme. But I was also one of the people that said, all right, let's not freak out too much until we get into WrestleMania time, because once Fastlane comes and goes, then I think SmackDown will start picking up steam. And it did right off the bat here. It wasn't a great show by any means, but definitely better than what we've seen in the past couple of weeks. And the show opened up with an AJ Styles promo. He came out there to celebrate his victory at Fastlane. He was then interrupted by Shinsuke Nakamura, who tried to cut a promo, who was then interrupted by Rusev. We go to commercial break, and we come back with an AJ and Rusev match. We have Aiden English and Nakamura, who stuck around on the outside of the ring watching the match. And the match ends in a DQ, which is kind of good. I'm glad that they didn't beat Rusev, 2 nights in a row there. And Aiden English interfered, caused the DQ, and the two of them start beating the hell out of AJ Styles until finally Nakamura comes in and makes the save. So they're pushing the respect thing between AJ and Shinsuke. They're insulting each other a little bit, but for the most part, we're in for a babyface match here at WrestleMania, and I don't really care about the build. I mean, AJ and Nakamura, you don't need to do much build for this. A lot of fans are like, oh, I hope this build is going to be good. Fuck the build. I want the match to be good. I'm almost certain that next week it's going to be AJ and Nakamura versus Rusev and English. I bet my middle nut on that's the match that we're going to get. So as long as we don't see that every week, because that's what we see every time we have a babyface match, they're forced to team together, and then there's going to be some miscommunication, and I promise you, AJ Styles is going to accidentally hit Nakamura with a phenomenal forearm, and Nakamura might accidentally hit AJ with a Kinshasa as well. I mentioned the Bludgeon Brothers beating the hell out of the Usos and the New Day at Fastlane. They hospitalized everybody except for Big E and one of the Usos. I'm not even sure which one it was. Maybe Jimmy. I don't even know. But Big E and the Uso actually teamed up to face the Bludgeon Brothers in a match. And there was a big mallet chair fight at the beginning, and eventually the Bludgeon Brothers got the victory there. And again, with the triple threats, this is triple threat mania, running wild here. I guess we're going to get another one at WrestleMania, and it could be Usos versus New Day versus Bludgeon Brothers. And again, I'm going to go back to this again because I've been talking about this for several weeks, that there's something that is telling me that Big E is about to go singles at some point. In previous weeks, he's been cutting more serious promos. He's been doing a few things that he normally doesn't do. And here this week on SmackDown, the rest of his New Day partners are not there. He's on his own, and he's doing a backstage promo where he talks to the other Uso, and it just something is telling me that after WrestleMania, Big E is going to break away from the New Day. Whether or not he turns on him or goes a separate way as a babyface, I don't know. WWE might want to keep him a babyface because he is very charismatic and he is very entertaining, so maybe they don't want to turn him heel. But I think one way or the other, this guy is ready for a singles push. He really is. So I'm hoping we see that here in the coming weeks once WrestleMania goes by. We also had a confrontation between Charlotte and Asuka. Charlotte came out to the ring and called out Asuka, and she came out and said a few words, and it was kind of the type of promo you'd expect from an Asuka or Shinsuke Nakamura. And Charlotte vows to beat her, and Asuka vows to beat Charlotte. And that was pretty much the end of it because Randy Orton came out and interrupted. Cuts a promo as the new United States champion, which prompts Bobby Roode to come out. He winds up having a match with Jinder Mahal. The one healthy Singh brother gets involved, distracts Bobby Roode, and Bobby Roode gets hit with the Colossus and loses again. So he got beat at Fastlane, and he got beat here on Tuesday night. And then after the match, Randy Orton, who was at ringside, jumps in the ring and nails Jinder Mahal with an RKO. So it's looking like we're going to get another triple threat match. We're going to get one on Raw for the Intercontinental, and now we're going to get one on SmackDown for the U.S. title, unless they add some more people to this and do a ladder match. It's also possible that with the Usos and the New Day and the Bludgeon Brothers that we get a ladder match in that as well. I don't think we're going to get two ladder matches, but we might get one or the other. And it might make more sense in the tag match because that whole issue has been very brutal. The Bludgeon Brothers have hospitalized guys, so I don't know if you can have a regular match with regular rules. You might have to have an anything goes type of affair, which means a ladder match could suit those three tag teams very well. If not, they might do it for the U.S. title and add Dolph Ziggler or something like that. But right now it's looking like a triple threat, Orton, Jinder, and Roode for the title. We had a women's match with Carmella taking on Naomi, and Carmella pretty much beat her clean. Of course, Carmella has got the briefcase, and I am scared shitless that she is going to try to cash that thing in. And could you fucking imagine that? If Carmella comes in and cashes in on Asuka after Asuka beats Charlotte in a hard-fought match, and 2.5-year undefeated streak comes to an end. And I pitched the idea on Twitter on Tuesday night during SmackDown that maybe they could have one other cameo at WrestleMania, just a one-time deal, have James Ellsworth show up at WrestleMania and somehow cost Carmella the cash-in. You know, maybe Asuka is laying there in the middle of the ring completely spent after a grueling match with Charlotte, and then she's the new champion, and just as she's getting to her feet, Carmella comes out there to take advantage, and maybe Ellsworth cuts her off, the bell still winds up ringing, and then Asuka's able to catch Carmella in the Asuka lock and tap her out. I don't know, just an idea. Whatever they do, I don't care. I just don't know if I want to see Carmella beat Asuka after she beats Charlotte, and that's assuming she even does beat Charlotte. Charlotte could very well end the streak, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm a big fan of both of those ladies. I really don't care who wins. And I'm not going to be that type of fan to say, oh, Charlotte should win, or Asuka should win, or one of them needs to win. No, fuck that. This just needs to be a good match. Don't care who wins. Don't think it's going to hurt either lady, regardless. You got to end the streak at some point, so WrestleMania could be a good stage to do that on. Or you put the belt on Asuka, and you have somebody end the streak down the line. And that could very well be Charlotte. You know, Charlotte putting over Asuka at WrestleMania, maybe that means she gets that victory back, and she's the one to end the streak down the line. And the argument can also be made that Charlotte is already a made woman, and she doesn't necessarily need that feather in her cap. That could go to somebody else and really be a launching point for them as well. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but at the end of the day, I'm really happy to see the match between Asuka and Charlotte, and I hope it's good. The final segment on SmackDown was an interesting one as well. It was a Shane McMahon promo. They had been advertising all night that he was going to come out and make an announcement, a major announcement about WrestleMania. And one could only assume that that announcement was going to be involving Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So Shane comes to the ring and he announces that he's going to take an indefinite leave of absence. He actually does agree that he's overstepped his bounds and he got involved too much at Fastlane. And he said Daniel Bryan will be back on TV next week and he's going to hand everything over to Daniel Bryan and he's going to take a leave of absence. And then right before his promo is about to end, he announces that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would in fact face one-on-one at WrestleMania. That prompts Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to come out. They don't like this announcement and they proceed to beat the shit out of Shane McMahon. He takes a hell of an ass whipping in this segment. and they've got them all in the ring, and they're beating the hell out of them there. And then they do the really gnarly chair spot, which I hate watching because it really does look brutal. When they put the guy's head in the chair and they ram it into the ring post, Shane took a brutal shot there, and then they drag his lifeless body all the way to the backstage area and give him a power bomb on top of this, I don't know, this fucking metal contraption, just some sort of platform. And he hits so hard that he makes this crazy ass sound. And I think Shane, he's either really good at selling, he's either the best seller in the history of wrestling, or he's legitimately hurt here, or at least had the wind knocked out of him. Because when he hit that thing, he started going like, ooh, 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 like I thought he was coming. It reminded me of that funny ass video that's on YouTube from years ago, 10, 15 years ago. It was a newscast and they were squishing some grapes with their feet, and this lady falls off and she kind of makes a similar noise. Look it up on YouTube. You'll laugh your ass off. It's called, just look up Grape Lady Falls, like the fruit grape, Grape. Grape Lady Falls. You'll find it on there, and just listen to the sound she makes. It's very similar to Shane McMahon. So I think Shane might have been legit hurt, and he's no spring chicken. That dude's, he's an old man now. And to take a bump like that on a pile of steel, I can easily see how Shane McMahon got legit injured in that thing. So am I wrong for completely giving up hope on Daniel Bryan? I mean, what do you guys think? Are we going to get that or not? And given what we saw on SmackDown, I'm starting to think that maybe Daniel Bryan comes to the aid of Shane McMahon, and Daniel Bryan and Shane take on Owens and Zayn in a tag team match, which would be weird because SmackDown and Raw are mirroring each other. You might have a triple threat for the US and the IC. You got two big one-on-one world title matches, and now you might do a general manager tag team match with Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon and Stephanie all having matches. So I think that might be a possibility, and I think it would be awesome for us to see Daniel Bryan back in the ring. Maybe WWE said, all right, we'll let you come back in for a tag team match where you can be somewhat protected. I don't even know what to expect here. I mean, Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon have had so much tension between them for months now. It just seemed like that's the direction they're going in. Shane McMahon versus Daniel Bryan. I think it's too late for them to work out a way to do Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan. So it seems more likely that these four guys are going to all be involved together. Maybe it's a handicap match with Shane McMahon versus Owens and Zayn and Daniel Bryan as the referee. And then Daniel Bryan and Shane finally overcome all of their differences, and Bryan helps Shane win when he hits, I don't know, one of the guys with a running knee or something like that, or puts Zayn in the crossface, or maybe gets a little bit physical. Daniel Bryan is a pretty big over babyface. I don't know if I really see him turning heel, unless he turned heel on Shane McMahon and formed an alliance with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. You also have AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura on that roster. Maybe you bring in somebody like Finn Balor or Seth Rollins from SmackDown, or from Raw, and put them over there. And you could have SmackDown filled with a lot of indie darlings, so to speak. And it might be just what the fans need or want. And we do know we're going to get that shakeup. They mentioned it on Monday Night Raw. I think Cesaro or Sheamus mentioned it during Raw, that there's most likely going to be a shakeup. So we know we're going to have some wrestlers moving around here. So I really don't know what to expect with the Shane McMahon situation. I guess we'll find out next week, because Daniel Bryan will be returning to TV. And whatever winds up happening, maybe Shane McMahon's leave of absence is now going to be null and void because he's pissed because he got his ass kicked last week. Or maybe he takes next week off to at least sell the injury, and Daniel Bryan does some business, and then Shane comes back the week after, and then you got your tag match set up. I don't know. But right now, it's kind of looking like the tag team route is the way to go. It's either got to be a tag team, or it's got to be Shane versus the both of them, or they somehow still figure out a way to do the big match between Owens and Zayn, who they cannot seem to decide whether or not they love or hate each other, because they're back on the same page on SmackDown, where they were trying to kill each other the week before. I'm fucking confused. So you guys leave me all your thoughts and ideas and comments below, and let me know what you think about all this nonsense. So that means for WrestleMania, this is what we're looking at here. These are the matches I have written down. And let me just do a quick count here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 matches, plus the Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn shit. That's 14. And we might still get one more. So we've got Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Charlotte versus Asuka, Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax. Right now, it's Braun Strowman versus The Bar, we're going to get some sort of a SmackDown tag team title match with those three teams, Usos, New Day, and Bludgeon Brothers. We've got the Intercontinental Triple Threat with Miz and Balor and Seth. We're probably going to get a U.S. Triple Threat as well. We've got the Cruiserweight Final, which we did see Cedric Alexander advance to the finals on 205 Live. So my pick right from the start is in the finals now, and he'll be taking on the winner of Drew Gulak or Mustafa Ali. And I'm kind of hoping for a babyface match here. I hope Ali goes over, because I think Cedric and Ali are two guys that are really well respected in the Cruiserweight division, and I would like to see that match. So Cedric is in, and we'll find out next week who his opponent will be. So that match will be at WrestleMania. We now know we're going to get The Undertaker versus John Cena. We're going to get the mixed tag on Raw with Rousey and Kurt, Stephanie and Triple H. We've got the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal, and I'm assuming we're getting the Andre the Giant Battle Royal as well, although there's been no announcement of this, but I think it's going to happen. Otherwise, if it doesn't, what do you do with guys like Rusev and Ziggler and guys like that? So you got to do something. And of course, we have whatever Shane McMahon winds up doing with Owens and Zayn. So that's like 14 matches right now, and that's a lot. So that's what WrestleMania is looking like. Let me know if I left anything out there. We know we're going to get some segments. I mentioned the possibility of an Elias segment with The Rock. We'll get the Hall of Fame spot. We'll get all sorts of shit. So WrestleMania, it's not looking horrible. Everybody likes to complain this time of year. Oh, this is going to be the worst WrestleMania ever. Last year was pretty good. I think this one will be too. I'm optimistic. You know me, right? Aside from that, the only other thing I'm going to talk about is, I'm trying to see what I have written down here. All I have written down is the big Royal Rumble match that you guys have asked me to comment on. I don't really have many comments on it. WWE is going to Saudi Arabia for a big tour, and they're going to give those fans there something that not only they have never seen, but we've never seen either. I don't recall any battle royals larger than 40 guys, maybe. I don't think they've ever gone over 40. I know they've had some 40s. I've seen 10-man, I've seen 15-man, I've seen 20, 25, 30, and 40-man battle royals in my life, but never 50. So 50 is pretty interesting. It's going to be a clusterfuck, and it's going to be a Royal Rumble. That should be quite the spectacle. I'm sure it's going to be a big sold-out affair there, and should be fun. So I'll be looking forward to seeing footage of that when that finally happens in a few weeks. I believe that's after WrestleMania, I believe. And the only other news that I have here written down to mention is another thing that you guys are asking me a lot about, and that is the All In show that's coming in September. I believe it's September 1st, and it's going to be self-financed by the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes. They're putting on this show themselves, which I think is great. So it should be a fun affair. And apparently there's even going to be a podcast convention during that weekend as well. I don't know how you get in on this. I don't know if you have to be invited or what you have to do. But if there's any way that I can be involved in this, I will definitely try to make that trip. So if you guys want me there, tweet those All In guys or go over to wherever that information is and say, we want Good Mic Work there. And I might actually look into it. I'm not sure if I'm big enough to be invited to this thing when it says it's a podcast convention. I don't know if it's just big podcasts with hundreds of thousands of listeners or people with tens of thousands like myself are actually invited to this. So I consider myself a pretty small YouTuber, but I'm definitely no J-Brone. And I'm definitely not that small, but I'm not to the level of, like something to wrestle with or anything like that. I just kind of do my own thing. So if there's any chance that I can get in on that, I promise you I will. It would be fun to go there, meet some of you, and interact. I think it would be awesome. So that's pretty much all I have written down for this week. I'm going to get out of here. I will be up here most likely this coming Monday night. We'll sit down. We'll do a live watch along for Monday Night Raw. That's assuming I'm here. Nothing crazy happens. I expect to be, but that is subject to change. If something comes up, I may not be available, but if I am, I'll be up on YouTube, and we'll watch the show together. So you guys have a great rest of your week. Please leave me all your comments below. Hit this video with a like, because I know the people that are still listening at the end of this podcast, you guys are my most loyal listeners because you listen to me straight through. So do me a huge favor and like this video. And of course, if you have not for some reason subscribed yet, do that as well. But please like it, please share it, and let's have a fun WrestleMania season. You guys take care and have a great week, and I'll talk to you real soon. Until next time, peace.
This has been a Good Mic Work Commentaries production. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/GoodMicWork. Follow Greg Morgan on Twitter at GoodMicWork and visit GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com for all the latest podcast and video content.